this session is really, it's about change. It's about the changing relationship between law firms, law departments, lawyers, and their clients. It's about the changing role of GCs. It's about the changing legal function in-house. And most of all, it's about the changing role of BD, and I will add CRM people in law firms in those changing relationships. You know, I've worked with law firms for a large number of years as a sort of in-house and a consultant. I've seen a great deal of change. You know, I left the first law firm I went to work with, you know, which was a long time ago, because I couldn't really cope with a partner asking me what time he had to get on the bus for the golf anymore. Things have changed a lot. You know, I've been with Allen and Overy now for, I wouldn't like to say how long, but, you know, in that period of time, I have seen BD really become an integral part of the strategic planning process. Their role has changed phenomenally, but, you know, I now want to sort of introduce the other speakers. This is where I've got to put my glasses on to make sure I get things right. Harry Felfer. Now, Harry, again, like me, has worked with law firms for a long time. He's now manages the sale of CRM, e-marketing, and ERD solutions across EMEA and South Africa for LexisNexis. So he really, and his organisation, are one of, I suppose, the drivers of the changes in technology that are impacting on us all. So he has very, very strong insights into BD and working with lawyers. And then I've got Manu Kanwar. Now, Manu is the founder of Lex Solutions. And you know, Lex Solutions essentially provide consultancy services to in-house teams. They coach in-house teams. But, you know, Manu's key strength is his commercial and strategic focus. Very much what Lisa was mentioning, that, you know, lawyers that can really bring and add strategic value are the ones that clients want. So he helps organizations with that. And finally, and we have to thank Bruce significantly because one of the panel members unfortunately had to stay behind in Switzerland last night. So Bruce Macmillan, who is the founder and director of the Centre for Legal Leadership, popped in very, very quickly. You know, I was very relieved when I opened the BlackBerry early this morning to see that, you know, Bruce was actually able to join us. So special thank you for Bruce for joining us at this last minute. You know, Bruce has worked in-house, in private practice. He's a coach. He's a mentor. So really wonderful perspective from the panel here on the changes that are taking place. I'm going to kick off with Harry here. And, you know, one of the challenges that we all face as professional marketers in law firms is encouraging and facilitating lawyers to become marketers. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not. Harry, do you think that lawyers can be effective in the BD process, given the fact that they've got to focus on being lawyers and on transactions and on providing strategic advice to clients?
I think that's a challenge, Anne. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. And it's a good question for all of you. And shall I launch into
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
So I have a question for all of you first, and that is, in your law firms, how many of you believe that your lawyers are ideal business developers?
Not one.
Okay, good. So I'm only going to speak for about 10 minutes. I have a little story that I shared this morning that will resonate with all of you. When I was invited to speak for my 10 minutes, I found a slide deck of 48 perfect slides, and I mercifully cut that down to 22 of the most inspiring, awesome slides. And my marketing department cut that to 6. And as Terry and Rachel said this morning, that's a good marketing department. So for those of you that are in charge of that, we see your work all the time. So I wanted to talk about, and do we have a clicker? Thank you. And will I be the next one up? Whoops. Brilliant. So the question is, future of law firm business development. And the question that Ann posed, are your lawyers good business developers? Well, some of them are, right? And there's no question about it. But they don't always stay that way, even though some of them might be. And more importantly, you got a lot of them that will never be business developers, et cetera. So you have a challenge there. Now, I have the luxury of working for an organization that has over 500 law firm clients around the world, and we got to engage directly with you and your colleagues and ask them several questions to help us answer that question. Because that's the question. What is the future of business development? And first of all, let's focus business development for a moment. That is three things in a law firm. It's client retention, customer service, if you will. It is exploiting or leveraging new business into those existing clients through cross-selling. And finally, leveraging the relationships that you have inside and outside the law firm to generate new business and new clients. Okay? So we asked a whole series of questions, and they fell into broadly three categories. So those categories were as follows. I, too, wear glasses when I have to read. So
Age.
When you're gorgeous, it's always a burden. Anyway, what's not working for you, and what frustrates you? Okay? These were asked of business developers and marketing professionals across law firms. What's working well, and how was that achieved? How did you get something working well in your law firms? Again, within that context. And then finally, if you had a magic wand, what would you like to see happen? What would you like to have? Okay? Now, we got a whole bunch of answers that we worked through, and we came to a variety of conclusions. And of course, we're interested in being able to then provide tools and solutions that will help enable what business developers and marketeers want in law firms. So it was important to us. But I'm going to share with you some of those responses. But there was one overriding conclusion that we came to. It's you. Okay? You are the future of business development in law firms. There is no doubt about it. I think we're all pretty much agreed, in general, lawyers aren't business developers. So they rely on you, right? But there's the challenge right there. Okay? If lawyers aren't business developers and you're selling, and remember the presentations earlier this morning, their expertise, their experience, et cetera, how do you do that without interfering with the work that they do? Okay? Because they have to practice law. And that's what actually drives, over the long term, the reputation of the firm and ultimately new business and sustained business. Okay? But you can't step on their parade. You can't stop them from practicing law. You can't stop them from billing time, or you're going to hear it from their department heads. Okay? So we can't just put gadgets on their desktops and say, there you go, business development, you run with it. Okay? We'll give you all sorts of workflows that you can work through and all sorts of things to do. There'll be always a handful of lawyers who are going to do that just fine. But eventually they'll have to travel, or they'll get involved in a big project and everything gets stalled and you lose control, et cetera. Then where are we? Right? You've lost control of business development in your law firm. And probably someone who was producing a lot of it for you. So if they're busy, they have to do billable time, et cetera. That is where it breaks down. Okay? So what does work? What already works in a law firm? And that is understanding that lawyers can, in fact, be very effective when it comes to client prospect engagement. That's existing clients and leveraging new work through cross-selling and new business. In other words, putting the lawyer face-to-face with the prospect is magical. Okay? Because then they get to see firsthand the experience and the expertise. That's what they came to market to buy, and that's what they want to see. Now, you got them there through all your marketing campaigns and your efforts, and I'm just going to assume that we all know the basics of business development, marketing, et cetera. And there's some real expertise here that you'll hear from later in the day about e-marketing specifically and how you get your firm out there. But once those prospects come in, then what happens? How do you manage them, et cetera? Well, then we come into the magic wand area, okay? So what I want to do is I want to leverage those lawyers into initial meetings to review and perhaps produce and approve proposals, and to generate, approve, and send out contracts. Because these are all key steps in my plan for business development. Okay? So, I as a business developer want to manage this. I don't want the lawyers to manage it. I don't want the lawyers to think about what the next step is and what else they have to do. I just want them to do those 3 things for me. And what I want to do is make sure that I have visibility when they're doing it, if they got it done. Do they need a nudge from me? Do they need a nudge from their department head or from the managing department in general? And if I see problems there, I'll be flexible. I'll move towards another person that might be able to pick up the slack, whatever it may be. I can't leave the management of those processes and steps in the hands of the lawyers. Not because there's something wrong with them or they're bad, et cetera. It's because they're practicing law. Okay? And that's the very reason that your firms have been successful up until now. The problem is they'll bury you in not being able to keep up with these things. So the magic wand is to give me a total, thoroughly integrated way to see my entire firm, everything that's going on, find out who's doing what, make sure that I'm managing the processes. As I said before, nudge people in and out of roles that they need to play as lawyers that would be most effective to me, because you are now, as business developers, and forever going forward, the most important element of a law firm outside of the lawyers themselves. Okay? You are the future of business development. You're no longer add-on departments. You're no longer just an annoying part of a lawyer's job. You are the collaborators, and you actually make their work very easy for them. So, some of the things you want to do is you want to manage that process. You know how to build tasks, workflows, set stages, know what needs to be done. Think of when you come in from marketing campaigns, people arrive. What do you do with them? How do you get them into a process so that you can end up signing new business? The lawyers play a key role there. But it is you that is managing how those lawyers come in and out of that process. You want to monitor every process that takes place. You want to know, and you need a tool, et cetera, that's going to let you know when those lunch meetings took place that you've asked the lawyer to do. You want to know if the prospect has responded to the proposal. You want to know if the contracts have been sent out and if they need to be chased. Because in any one of those areas, if they don't happen, a competitor is going to come in and grab that prospect. There's no question about it. And we can't rely on the lawyer to be managing those things. Okay? And finally, you want to collaborate with the lawyers. And here's where, hopefully these are in the right order. I think it was Terry this morning who talked about big data. What does it mean? That sort of thing. Well, I think of big data and little data. It's really all just data. When you get as old as I am, it's just data. Okay? However, how do you make it contextual? In other words, if these lawyers are going to perform the way you need them to perform, they're only going to be comfortable doing so as long as you don't make them responsible for their own self-management and business development, because they're already responsible for practicing law. But you also need to be able to make sure they have access to all of this information. Now, there's purposely not a little globe up here, but I want to use it as an example, because you're going to hear from e-marketers later on. So if you've been very successful at promoting an event, and you send out 100 invitations and 50 reply, 25 commit to go, and 12 show up. Okay, that's pretty typical. Then what you want to do is you want to steer those people into that campaign, and you want to get them into the process. Now, your e-marketing solution has to be seamless with your whole portal, and that means that it's got to be easy for the lawyers to make sure that they know who's coming to that event. Is the event going to happen? Did they show up to the event? And can I be introduced to the people who express genuine interest? So that's an example of data outside of CRM, outside of your business development, that's coming from your marketing department that needs to be integrated into your processes and, more importantly, put into the lawyer's mind when it's important. Notifiers coming from inside the firm and outside the firm. News, business feeds, social, company info, profiles. So when the lawyer is having either these initial meetings, or they're reviewing the proposal to send out, or they're actually drafting the contracts for the new business or the new engagement, do they know everything they need to know about this company so that it's a perfect fit, so there's no hesitation for the prospect to take the next step? Okay? Structure. Is this prospect related to someone else that we do business with? Can I leverage that to make myself look more effective in front of them when I go to lunch with them, et cetera? So you need to be able to get all this information in front of the lawyers all the time, in context, meaning when they need it, and succinctly. Not just big, huge pieces of data, but succinct pieces of data that help them make the decisions exactly as you need them to along the process. Okay? Finally, this sexy part. What all of you need in the end of the day is incredibly smart metrics to have a view of everything that's going on from the 35,000-foot view or meter view or however high you want to go, meaning I can see all of the business development activities, cross-selling, new business, et cetera, across the firm. I can slice, dice, chop it, see what's going on at a department level. I can share that with the lawyers and the department heads, et cetera, and the lawyers themselves can be made aware of it. Okay? Well, somehow one got missed there. Well, whatever. Anyway, so there is an element of sex that goes into this, sexiness. Okay? So the lawyers are going to want to see where they are, what they're supposed to be doing, that sort of thing, and there's a competitiveness among lawyers. Am I working well with my business developers, and am I getting my task done? And they feel very comfortable doing so, knowing you're standing behind them and manage them. But if you can keep them apprised of it in easy, graphical ways, then it makes your job much more easy. And it keeps that phone from ringing about where are we on this situation? What's going on with this one? Has this person replied? What's the next step? Because you're feeding it to them. Okay? So I just wanted to end by saying that we think you are the future of business development, and we think that your lawyers aren't going to be very good business developers. You are the business developers, but you can leverage them in ways that may not have been thought of before to help you succeed in cross-selling and growing the business. Thank you.